Welcome to Dark Side Tour Guides. I'm Carrie.
I'm Catherine.
And I'm Bree.
Today we are taking a tour of Boston. The only North New England area city I've been to is New York. So I need to do some traveling in the New England area.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Boston a couple times, but like my big Boston trip, I went with one of my childhood friends, and her family is from Boston, and they're diehard Red Sox fans. And I got to sit on the green wall monster thing at the place where they play baseball, and it was fun. And I had a hot dog.
The stadium.
Yep. And apparently it was a really big deal. And I was like, yeah, this is super fun. And everyone's like, you got to sit there? And I'm like, it was fun. And shout out to you, Mo. Hope you're doing all right. So that's my Boston story. Just like the food markets, pretty much. That was my jam when I was there. And we stayed in a place that was probably haunted. It was like our great aunt's house. And there was a really terrifying portrait. I was like going into 8th grade maybe. So it was pretty fun.
Did the eyes follow you?
Yeah, I was so scared. And I don't understand the relationship that they had with her still. And it was like an old Boston. It was cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we went into a bar, and I thought it was like so scandalous. But it was like a
Ooh.
sports bar.
Oh.
Like we went and
Never
had
mind.
burgers, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in this bar. Wow. And that's my Boston story.
I've never been to Boston either. The only place on the East Coast I've been is D.C. for an a cappella trip. Well, I've been to Florida, but nobody counts Florida.
No.
Sorry.
As
if
a
we have
Northeast-
any-
North.
As a northeastern
Well, I know. I'm just saying.
girl.
East Coast
Yeah.
in general.
Offensive.
Well, that's why I said nobody counts Florida. I'm sorry. If we
I did
ever
live
have
Florida, too, though.
any listeners from Florida, I'm sorry.
I lived in Florida.
I remember that.
I'm glad I don't anymore.
Yeah, I had family down there. But anyway, only ever DC. So no Boston for me.
Yeah. All right, so our first stop is our drink. We have the Ward 8 today. So when I researched for the cocktails, I researched the city plus cocktail, and that was a mistake for Boston because there's the Boston cocktail shaker, which was the first thing that popped up. So I was like, oh, that was a dumb move. And then, actually, along with it, the Hawthorne strainer, the little strainer that has the...
The Slinky?
Yes. That actually originated in Boston. So there's your little fun fact.
Oh, look at you, Boston.
Yeah. So, the Ward 8 was first created in 1898 in Boston's Loch Ober Cafe. It is a relative of the whiskey sour, but sweetened with grenadine. There isn't an official story. There are 3 claim stories, but none of them have any proof. And there's not really anything holding them together. It's just like, this person created this drink. That's nice.
Yeah.
But the most known story is that Tom, I don't know how to say this.
Hussin.
Hussin?
Hussin.
Sure. We're gonna edit. But that Tom Hussin celebrated it. Wow, we're gonna cut all of this out because I can't talk right now. The most known story is that Tom Hussin created to celebrate an election win.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the recipe is 2 ounces of straight rye whiskey, a half ounce of fresh lemon juice, a 1/4 ounce of fresh orange juice, a 1/4 ounce of grenadine, or more if you like grenadine, and then a splash of sparkling water. You shake all of the non-sparkling water ingredients together over ice. Not rice, ice.
Yeah, smart ass.
Over mice?
For mice.
When I was editing, I was like, I could have said mice.
Yeah.
So rice wasn't that bad.
Rice. No. And then you add the sparkling water on top and serve with fresh ice.
I suggested doing a sort of tea-based cocktail as a proud American,
I tried.
but apparently tea cocktails do not originate in Boston.
No.
But it is a classic tale of America.
Yeah, we could have made a joke of it.
Throw it in the harbor!
Are there any tea-based cocktails?
I've had Earl Grey cocktail with,
Ooh.
it was like citron, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
And like lavender liqueur and Earl Grey tea.
Yeah.
It was at a really hipster bar in Houston. It was delicious.
It sounds delicious.
It
Yeah.
sounds delicious.
I love Earl Grey. Lady Grey is appalling, but I love Earl Grey.
I like all
I had Lady Grey for
do Lady
breakfast.
Grey. Sorry, I can't do it. I don't know why. I just can't.
And I also had Earl Grey with jasmine this afternoon as my little pick-me-up.
See,
I
I
love
feel like
tea.
most people, if they can't do one of the grays, it's
Winky
gonna
face.
be it's gonna be Earl Grey.
Or Christian Grey.
Hey, I do Christian Grey.
I don't know.
50 Shades.
Oh. I slept through that movie, remember? You were like, come to this movie with me, and I slept through the
My
entire
dad was
thing.
like, "Are you and Catherine partners? Because you're going to see 50 Shades together?" No.
I slept the entire time. Like, preview started and I was asleep, and she woke me up and she's like, let's go. And I was like, what? What's happening?
So I went with a roommate to see that, and it was my first time ever going to an Alma Draft House, which now I'm obsessed with Alma Draft House. If any of our
Alcoholic
listeners...
milkshakes.
Oh, yeah. If any of our listeners
Done.
know Alma Draft House, you probably understand. But, like, that was my first experience there, and I was just like, this is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, go America. Throw that tea into the harbor and drink your Ward 8s.
And get that tea.
I love tea. Oh my god. So we're gonna go on to the food now. So
Oh my gosh.
I tweaked this a little bit because of personal preferences and our location. So first I'd like to clear up something that may be confusing. A soup is a dish made by combining liquids such as water or stock with other ingredients such as meat and vegetable, while chowder
Chowder.
is a thick, creamy soup or stew. So, as
So
a
is a
thick
chowder
person,
is a chowder a soup
As a
like
thick
a
yes,
square
as a thick person, your girl likes chowder. So it is delicious. I made a corn chowder today because we have a lot of sweet corn that's available here in Texas at this time of year, and the only clams that are available this far north in Texas are ones that have either been frozen
Nasty.
or from a can, and I am very iffy about seafood regardless.
Yeah. Especially
And
if
I just, they look like, I couldn't, they like float in this liquid. So I made a corn chowder. I tried to keep it pretty similar. It is a cream-based corn chowder, just like Boston clam chowder or New England clam chowder is a cream-based chowder, which is different than the Manhattan clam chowder, which is like a red color. So it has like a tomatoey broth. But they're very different. And coming from the Northeast, people will get mad if you confuse the two. So we did a corn chowder as an homage to the Boston clam chowder.
How you know where corn comes from?
Iowa. Yep.
I just had to do it because I knew it would drive
Yeah.
you crazy.
the
Well-
Bible.
Well, and our fun local story is that I used honey from our local bee farm to sweeten it because I didn't have a lot of time, and a lot of recipes said you can put some honey in there if you don't have time to like milk your corn husks, which I was not going to do on principle. So I put a little bit of honey in there from our local bee farm. So thank you, bees. You're important.
Save the
and
bees.
We should all save you. And one of Boston's most famous restaurants is the Union Oyster House, and it's been serving clam chowder. Guys, I've had 2 drinks, and it's been a rough day. Clam chowder since the 1850s.
Oh.
So it is like a tradition in Boston. And one other thing that may be interesting is that clam chowder pairs well with Chardonnay, a full-bodied white with buttery flavors and vanilla, butterscotch, and oak notes.
We'll do Chardonnay one day.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Chardonnay fan. I think because my mom, it's her favorite. So, hi, Mom. I love you. But I hate Chardonnay. But our image was paired with a very vintage bottle of Trader Joe's Chardonnay. That was $3. So, for your viewing pleasure, and those of you on a budget, you could make a nice chowder with some Chardonnay. Or Shardy, as Leslie would call it. She would. I know. Yep. So, what do you guys think of the drinks? Think of the meal?
So, I'm not really a whiskey drinker, so the drink is not my first choice. It is tasty, but I would make it differently just because I am not a whiskey drinker. However, I want literally 3 more bowls of the chowder because it was delicious.
I really like the drink because I do like whiskey. Like, I like this drink a lot.
Good.
And I liked the food, but I'm not a big fan of corn. Being from Iowa.
Oh, the irony.
What? In Iowa,
That's
all
what the
we
I
have.
in Mimel stands for.
Irony. You know, you're probably not wrong. No, but being from Iowa, you'd be like, oh, yeah. But it's all fucking corn all the time, and it's just so much.
Yeah.
But everyone else in my family likes corn. I just, like, it's too much.
There were potatoes in it and bacon.
I like the potatoes and the
bacon.
bacon. And cheese.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It's just not my favorite of all the dishes, because
that's
corn.
fair. That's fair. There will be some, I'm gonna like them all because I'm cooking them, and I just change stuff that I don't like. But that's what home cooking is all about, folks.
Amen.
There's literally 80 different, quote, Boston, unquote, chowder recipes. So, you know what? I just went with what my heart told me to do, and that was corn.
Well, for Catherine, I made a little special drink.
Yes.
Shout out Western Sun. Once again, they have a prickly pear vodka.
Sponsor us.
I want to
Western Sun, please sponsor us. But it makes a really nice vodka margarita. And so I literally just put the prickly pear vodka, a splash of lime, and topped it off with sparkling water. And it tastes like a popsicle.
Holy
Yeah.
balls, I want that.
Yeah,
I know,
it tastes
so
like a popsicle.
We're going to
It's
finish
delicious.
our Ward 8s and drink our popsicles.
Yay.
Yeah. So good.
Oh my gosh, it'll be like a Litty Titties, like little kids summer thing. Yay!
Those things don't go together.
Hey,
Also,
you in my world.
if you are from Boston, I apologize for my atrocious Boston dialect you're going to hear as a performer with 2 degrees in theater. I'm just going to go out there and say mine is trash and not even closely resembling an actual Boston dialect, so enjoy.
I'm not even going to try. I will poke
I just
fun
want to
in
say
the most
chowder.
in the most loving way possible. I will maybe throw out some words.
But Boston has the rich and historical culture.
Yeah.
So.
I really just want to say Ward 8.
In the car.
In the car. Oh my gosh,
You
yes.
gotta park the car.
I have a friend who lives in Jersey, and I'm like, car. You gotta get in the car.
Yep.
My khakis.
Also, I watched too much Jersey Shore in high school.
Oh my
so.
gosh.
Hey, it was a brain break. I know. I looked down on
Yeah.
everyone who watched it, and then I took AP Bio amongst every other AP class, and I was like, and working, and I was like, I need a brain break. So Jersey Shore, you garbage dumpster fire thing, get in here.
They're like kind of grown-ups now.
I
and
know,
It's so
it's
weird.
weird.
They are. It's real weird.
All right.
Weird. Well,
Give us some history.
Okay. Well, speaking of
Hang
Boston's
on.
rich.
After I pee.
Okay. Speaking of Boston's rich culture and history. Fuck off.
Let's try that again.
Speaking of Boston's rich culture and history, Boston and the surrounding area were originally inhabited by a tribe of Native Americans as far back as 2400 BC, if not further. It was originally named for the 3 hills in the area, the Tremontaine, but the Puritans changed it to Boston.
the Puritans came in and made things different than what they had been for thousands of years.
Good.
What?
Someone else made a sarcastic comment that wasn't me.
That's
Good.
really surprising.
Good.
That doesn't
I
sound
know.
like them at all.
I
What?
know, right?
White people taking over?
Oh, yep, we got commentary later, don't worry. Fucking white people. Please note I'm white.
We're all white.
I was going to leave you all out of it. I was just speaking for myself, but yeah. So within a few years of Captain John Smith's exploration of the area, more than half of the Native American population had died of smallpox, as everyone knows, in that area. So education and religion were really important, but they weren't super tolerant, and Carrie just downed her Ward 8 and made a wonderful face. Okay, so not tolerant. Christmas was banned, and if someone was found out as a Quaker, they
Okay.
could be...
Shout out to the Quakers. They really are the society of friends, because those guys and ladies are chill
Mm-hmm.
AF.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're real cool, and they make a mean bowl of oatmeal. So
Which is super shitty that they were, like, thrown in prison or put to death.
yeah,
because
because their whole thing was that, so, like, they had gender equality much earlier, and they believed that the light of God lived in everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, like, their whole thing, so that, like, you had to respect things. I mean, they were pretty conservative, but, like, the whole thing was that it was in everything, so you had to respect everything, and they were persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Quakers in Pennsylvania, too.
There's a lot of persecution going on back then.
Yeah.
It was awful. Speaking of which, as if religious intolerance wasn't bad enough, they brought in their first slave ship in 1643 through Boston Harbor.
Oh.
And I know they weren't the only ones, but this is a major part of American world history, after all. It's still awful, and it calls for acknowledgement of our cruelty and poor choices at the very least.
Sure.
What? White people doing bad things?
I know, it's so weird. That would never happen.
Yeah.
Super serious, guys. Ironically, considering they were bringing in ships of people whose rights they denied even existed and whose freedoms they had taken, the colonists bristled under the yoke of the English governors, especially with the levying of taxes on things like molasses in 1733, which the rum makers needed, so don't tax anything that could affect our booze, folks.
Yes. Why is the rum always gone?
Yeah, we mustn't threaten the production of booze. So,
Except for Prohibition.
I know.
Well, we all know how that turned
That's
out.
like a couple hundred years
Bathtub
later or
gin.
some
That's how
shit.
that turned
It's-
out.
Yeah. Bathtub gin. Fucking bathtub gin. Okay. Well, it got even more tumultuous when British troops threw down on a mob of colonists in 1770 and they killed 5 people,
Oh.
which is now known as the Boston Massacre.
Yep.
And to add even further insult to injury, another tax. But this time it was on tea, and we
No!
all know how that goes.
No!
Throw it into the harbor! No taxation without representation!
Give me my cup of tea!
So, yeah, we know how English people love their tea, both old world and new.
And
And
me.
who can blame them, though? Like,
It's
tea
so
is a
good.
glorious
I
thing.
love tea.
But that tax was levied in 1773. And so the Sons of Liberty are said to have dumped 45 tons of
and I
tea
love
in the
them.
harbor
Oh.
during the Boston Tea Party.
So much.
I just
I know.
sang all of Hamilton in my head, the whole thing.
Good job.
The whole thing.
Yep.
I the whole time I was writing
it's
this, I was
on
like,
Roxy.
Hamilton.
Alexander Hamilton.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Dude, I wish I could do Lafayette spit.
Lafayette.
My man
Land, please
Lala.
hire us.
I love my man Lala. 2 favorite characters in the whole thing. 2 most underrated characters. My man Lala and Peggy. Because Aunt Peggy just says Aunt Peggy. And I
Aunt
adore
Peggy.
her for it.
If I were in
Jonathan
Hamilton,
Groff in that role, literally afterwards. So I took my youngest sister to go see that in New York, and we got to see it with the original cast. And we were in the nosebleeds, like literally the last row in the theater, but it was worth it. And I had just graduated college, and she was in middle school, and so we went and we saw it. And Jonathan Groff was a perfect, precious baby angel in every way. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, my sister is really tiny, even for her age, and she got like swarmed when he came out, and he was like, "Oh, are you okay down there?" and like made everyone step back, and it was adjacent. And then you can hear my obnoxious laugh that you may be familiar with in a YouTube series, and they were there discussing Hamilton, and I make a joke and then had everyone in the audience do a sing-along with me. And you can hear me laughing in the background. So, not to brag, but I'm kind of famous.
If I were to be in Hamilton, I'd want to be Peggy. Just to be like, Aunt Peggy!
Yes.
Well, when you're
love
Peggy, you also get to be
Reynolds.
Mariah.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Clean. Even though bad things, but
Yeah.
She like blackmailed him.
I
and
know,
then-
but not
that's
the
my
character
character.
herself, but like that bit.
Yeah.
Say no. Oh, that's
See, I'm like, I'm a Seconda Diva. Like, that's my
It
role.
was so good.
About
And when
it.
she hits that, ugh.
See, and I'm more of a King George. That's my role.
That's fair.
Oh, I know my typecast, okay?
Okay, back to Boston, guys. Not
Sorry.
Hamilton. Sorry. I will go on all night. I love Hamilton.
Me.
So there were a number of battles in or near Boston during the Revolutionary War, but in 76 the colonists were finally able to celebrate the end of the siege of Boston as the British left with their tails between their legs. So, as I mentioned earlier, Boston Harbor, unfortunately, saw many a slave ship from 1643. Stop shaking your tits, Carrie.
We were dancing to Hamilton, Bree.
Her boobs are distracting me.
I'm sorry. They're just everywhere.
So, lots of slave ships from 1643 through the 18th
Karen,
century.
we're talking about
guys.
slave ships.
Yeah, leave your tits out of this.
Of your tits.
Literally.
They just like to be active.
Okay. But Boston was the first state in the Union to abolish slavery in the 1800s. I know it's little consolation, but just throwing that out there. Can't just hate on everyone. Gotta give all the facts. They later became a mecca for immigrants from all over: Italians, Chinese peoples, Eastern Europeans, the Irish fleeing the potato famine that hit in 1845. My people, we love our potatoes. Okay. As well as
Potatoes.
as well as a number of other
Taters.
immigrants. Taters.
Potatoes.
In 1919,
Lord of the Rings.
It sounded like something that Mary
Get
would
it
say.
together, Carrie!
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
We're such nerds. That's great. Okay, in 1919, a massive tank of molasses exploded in the north end, killing 21 people as we laugh. It was a tragedy. But
It literally flooded the
it's
streets.
called the Great Molasses Flood.
What? Wow.
But-
what a time to be alive.
Yeah. And it, continuing on that
molasses.
tragic theme, in 1942, 492 people died in one of history's deadliest nightclub fires, known as the Coconut Grove Fire.
Oh,
Now,
I heard about that.
yeah, I won't go
Yeah.
too far into the backstory of this because, and it's like number of previous owners, they have like a laundry list of misdeeds. So I'll leave it out for the sake of time, but hello,
Scandy.
1930s gangsters
Well,
and their
what?
greasy oil slick lawyers.
Yep.
Lawyers being slick. No. What?
No, what?
Anyway, but you guys should definitely check out the history.com's article on that because it's heartbreaking, but it's all really interesting and it's a really good read.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say that it was a tragedy that could have been, if not avoided completely, then at the very least lessened, at least in terms of the body count, because like 492 people, guys.
yeah,
if it weren't
that's
for the
huge.
greed, of the proprietor and his willingness to cut corners for the sake of the almighty dollar.
Wait a minute. A massive tragedy occurred and a huge amount of human loss of life because corporations were trying to save money.
I know, that doesn't happen anymore.
The Chicago Shirtwaist Factory fire.
Yeah.
Boom. The
Yeah.
Titanic. Boom.
Yep.
Pretty much everything else. Boom.
Yep.
Literally right now.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Big
Gosh.
Farm, just saying. Lots of people die because Big Farm has to make the almighty dollar instead of giving people the medicine and the cures that they fucking have.
Yeah.
Like
Nietzsche's diabetic.
insulin.
Yeah, my diabetic dog could die because of you fuckers.
Oh, Nita. Also, people.
That
But
people.
Nita's But it's okay. We love all. We're Quakers here. Everyone needs the
Everything has
respect.
God's spirit.
Okay.
Bro, what if I was a Quaker?
I might be.
I could see it.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
But the building was not up to code by any means. It had like these flammable full palm trees. I said that really weird. And some of the exit doors were nailed shut. My notes say shit. Whoopsies. Some of the doors were nailed shut because
That's terrifying.
the owner was like, well, I don't want people to slip out without paying, so I'm going to nail all the fucking exit doors shut, except for the one door, which was an entrance, and it was a rotating door, guys. Yeah. So listen to this. So the only place to flee was that front revolving door, and it's there that the masses tried to scramble over each other to escape the flames, and it is there that the firefighters found their dead bodies all stacked up one atop the other as they died from suffocation.
That happens a lot.
Yep, whether by
Yeah.
smoke inhalation, the crush of their fellow patrons' bodies weighing them down, or the fire itself.
Oh my
Stampedes are
gosh.
like a thing that happen.
Yeah,
and like
especially
it's
nightclubs.
terrifying.
that kills
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Like that kills just as many people as the fire.
Yeah, because the panic sets in and people aren't thinking,
Or-
so they're just running on top bodies.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's been like shootings and things
Yeah.
in places, and I mean, obviously that's horrific and that's a danger. But like people get squished, and didn't that happen on Black Friday?
Yeah, that's what I was
Speaking
just
of the
thinking.
dollar?
Yeah.
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 In Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrifying.
A pregnant woman got trampled, within the past few years.
I think it's like 3 years ago. something
Yeah,
like
it was a
that.
Black Friday thing, and a pregnant woman got trampled. And an old dude, and he died.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Boston the hits just keep on coming, guys, because angry racist protesters assaulted the school buses taking African American students to predominantly white schools and white students to African American schools under the orders of U.S. District Judge Arthur Garrity in 1974 in an effort to desegregate public schools.
Okay, but they didn't take the kids off the bus.
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, oh,
Do not hurt kids.
those are children.
No,
Jeez.
no, but protesters attacked the buses with bricks and eggs and like glass bottles and shit.
They're babies.
Yeah, and they tried to fight through the police to get into the schools too. Yeah. And then the backlash was particularly bad in the heavily Irish Catholic neighborhoods. Sorry, Catherine. In South Boston. And yeah, so most of us know about the bombing during the Boston Marathon in 2013, where 3 spectators unfortunately died and over 260 other people were wounded due to a terrorist attack that set off 2 bombs by the finish line.
My college roommate, so my mom was supposed to be running the Boston Marathon.
Oh, God.
And my roommate was from Boston, and her family was there. And if I remember correctly, one of the bombers went to her high school. They were she was in the mix because I bet she lived there a huge portion of her life, and a lot of her family was from there. So it was, she was obviously very upset during that whole thing. I just remember her sitting in the living room with the news on 2 different laptops and on the TV, all different channels, trying to figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's so scary.
yeah.
Jeez.
That was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm old.
Same.
Oh man.
God. To be 20 again. Well,
No.
I'm not 27 yet, but close. Okay. Anyway, moving on from the depressing shit to the interesting lore, okay? So, there's this thing called a thunderbird, and it's from Native American lore. And it always reminds me of the Garuda.
Yes.
Well, also Thunderbird. So,
Yeah.
Overmorny, the
Yes.
North American School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, one of their houses is called Thunderbird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because J.K. Rowling is a genius.
She's brilliant. All of her, she's just let me dip into all of the lore. And I'm like, yes, queen.
Yes.
Yes, you do it
She
so
makes a little buffet of all the lore, little lore buffet.
See, I just appreciate that I'm a wampus, which is a cat. And that kind of embodies my whole personality.
I'm a wampus too, I think,
I don't remember what I got.
because I'm a Ravenclaw and a wampus.
Slytherin and a wampus.
I'm a Hufflepuff, but I really don't remember what I got. That sucks.
Retake the test.
I should.
Now.
When I took that other animal test, they just didn't give me anything.
Oh yeah.
Me too!
They're
I'm
just
a
nope.
penguin. Colin and I are both penguins, and they mate for life.
That's so cute.
I know.
I got nothing. And Zach was like, we're not meant to be. I was like,
Oh! Damn, Zach! You don't remember that?
No.
We had a lot to drink that night.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Okay, sorry. Back to the Thunderbird. So they were condor-like birds. And in 1971, a police sergeant was heading home from work in the wee hours of the morning, and as he was driving,
nothing good happens in the
wee
wee
hours.
hours.
I had to make it the wee hours because it was early, but wee
The
hours
wee
is so
hours.
much better.
Yes.
Anyway, he was heading home from work. And as he was driving, he saw a massive creature over 6 feet tall with wings that spanned 8 to 12 feet. And the name of the place he was approaching was known as, wait for it, Bird Hill.
It's a pterodactyl, Bree.
I love pterodactyls. Nope, they terrified me as a child. But anyway.
Pterodactyl.
Do you guys remember that weird game?
No.
Oh!
It
You
was
have to
like-
curl your lips over your teeth like that and say, pterodactyl!
And yeah, but not. Oops, sorry, I just
But if
smacked
you
my
show
dog.
your teeth, you lose.
Pterodactyl.
But you have to say, pterodactyl!
Pterodactyl. I don't. What is the point of this game?
Yeah, and then you
To make
screech,
each other
but I sound
laugh.
like a baby.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you show your teeth, you lose. But you look like you were just getting ready to gum it. Okay,
I don't understand this game. Continue.
It was dumb. It was like a dumb kids thing.
Well, I
Anyway.
didn't have a childhood apparently, so let's
Well,
move on.
I didn't either. But anyway,
I didn't know Mr. Mimel or the weird pterodactyl.
No one
game.
in the South knows Mr. Mimel. I swear.
I'm from Texas.
Oh, I keep forgetting that. But your family's from Kentucky.
My parents are. The rest of my family lives there.
Yeah, so it doesn't count.
I was born in Houston.
But Carrie, you learned your people's ways! Anyway, so the creature allegedly flew up and disappeared over the trees heading toward the swamp. That's enough of the Thunderbird. We're moving on to Bigfoot.
Bigfoot!
Yeah! Okay, so everyone knows Bigfoot. He's a human-like, excessively hairy
Yeah, Bigfoot.
individual. Also,
What a guy.
like, I swear I kind of knew
Is it not my
a
husband?
Bigfoot at some point.
I love you, Zach.
I went to school with a Bigfoot, I swear. Anyway, also referred to as a Sasquatch. They're usually seen in wooded and swampy areas, and the Algonquin tribes did not call them Bigfoot, though. To them, these creatures were known as, shout out to Supernatural, Wendigos!
I like how we all knew.
So, Wendigo, roughly translated to mean the evil spirit that devours mankind.
Roughly translates? Bruh.
Yeah.
Was known as an evil, cannibalistic, supernatural creature that was often depicted as this tall, partially decomposing, emaciated creature out for blood.
Ew.
Yeah, sounds delightful.
Uh-huh.
Ask
Spooky.
him to tea!
Okay, second.
Yeah.
Is it technically cannibalistic if they're eating humans and they're no longer a human? Or are they just hunters?
Well, the lore
Predators.
is that technically they're human, they've just been like,
They ate human flesh, which turns them into a Wendigo,
not
right?
necessarily, they could have been raised from the dead by magic, and then they kind of got deformed from there.
Yeah.
Because unnatural shit, supernatural.
Okay.
But there are a bunch of like different. I get to that.
There's decaying involved. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So-
also, Supernatural was my childhood.
Oh, so good.
So,
Oh, Jensen Ackles, if you're listening.
Oh.
I
Daddy.
just wanted to say hi.
Family, Bree.
He had a wonderful Mother's Day post to his wife.
I know. I follow him
It
on
was
Instagram.
so
and they're
sweet.
fucking adorable.
They're so cute.
We have the same Christmas pajama pants. He and I. We have the sloth ones from Old Navy, and I was like, yay!
I'm wearing my star ones from Old Navy.
Yes.
So, like, I don't know what kind of person this makes me, but Garth was always my favorite.
I love God. With his sock. Oh, poor Kevin.
Wasn't
Tran.
there? Oh, poor
I love Mama Tran. Mama
Yeah.
Tran
Oh, she was a queen.
boss. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
But also, I just forgot her name. Shit, Crowley's mom.
Joe? Oh, no.
I just forgot her
Rowena.
name. Thank you. I was like, how did I forget her name?
I love Crowley,
Glorious
too.
woman. I know. Every time I say hello, boys, I feel like Crowley.
See, my white Jeep that I had before the car I have now, because I'm not going to say what car I have now, was named
For
Joe.
you murderers out there.
Yes, because clearly I'm worried about the murderers. But it was named Joe after
She's actually worried about the Wendigos.
Joe. It is the Wendigos.
Name Joe.
But yes, I had Joe the Jeep.
Aw, I name all of the cars except mine. Like my mom's old ass Blazer that's almost as old as me. I named her Gertrude Eunice Eugene Pumpernickel. And I call her Dirty Gertie.
My car's name is Natasha, and I only refer to her as Natasha. So I'll like tell someone like, "Oh yeah, meet me by Natasha," and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh,
My
She's
car.
sexy.
Sorry.
She's a black widow baby.
yeah, she is."
Okay. Wendigos. In some retellings, the creature would have sallow skin, while in others it would be covered in hair. The
Ew.
Wendigo is often associated with cold areas and starvation. So, like, lots of
Boston.
famine, the north, yup, all of these things.
Chili and honey.
Big in Canada.
Oh, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
There are many variations of the Wendigo lore and what the creatures look like, but the Algonquin tribe thought that its body was deformed, its heart was ice, and it was missing some of its extremities, like its toes. And I think its nose?
Oh.
No, its lips. Its toes and its
That
lips.
makes sense though, because of frostbite.
Yeah.
That's like the first things that go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Wendigos are said to have once been human, but to have been transformed into the monstrous creatures they are through magic. And sometimes they have powers, and they're said to have long fangs and tongues, claws, and eyes that glow.
We should start a band named the Wendigos, and we only do covers of songs
Please?
about magic.
Please! Oh my gosh, please, yes. I want to be a Wendigo. Not an actual Wendigo, but like a Wendigette.
Every little thing she does is
The
magic.
musician one, not the creature. Okay. So the next one I can't say, I'm sorry. It's a Pukwudgie?
Pukwudgie.
Pukwudgies.
That's
Oh my
probably your
gosh.
Hogwarts house.
Yes,
no,
'cause
your
that
Little
is-
Morny house.
That is also an Ilvermorny house.
That does sound familiar now that I hear it said out loud.
Pukwudgie.
Yeah.
They're cute.
Okay, well, the word itself originates from the Wampanoag and Delaware tribes, meaning little wild man of the forest.
Uh-huh.
Bitch, I'm a little wild man of the fucking forest. on the phone giving a purchase order. Call me, sir. And then he goes, I'm sorry, ma'am. And I laughed really hard.
People haven't talked to people in so long, no one knows how to do it anymore.
I laughed really hard, and he's like, one time I accidentally called this lady sir, and her husband took the phone and got it and goes, does she sound like a man to you? And he said, no, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
He should have like, no, ma'am.
I just laughed. I was like, yep, not a dude,
Yep.
not an XY, guys, not an XY. Okay. So, the Pukwudgies are supposed to be dwarf-like hominids with gray skin and large ears, fingers, and noses, and I'm getting more and more offended as I read this. They want hobbits! Hobbitses! I not have hobbits' feet.
I kind of do. They're always polished.
My
so.
sister had a friend in school who, this is not nice, but when she wasn't around, we'd say she had hobbit feet.
That's me.
I know, but it was only in our family. We didn't tell other people, but she dead ass had hobbit feet. I won't say who. Anyway, so, magical powers. They can shapeshift, they can start fires, and they have poison arrows.
Yep.
Bree,
And-
that's awesome.
Fuck you. Don't be condescending.
I'm serious. I like you do archery.
This is true.
You like arrows.
I do like arrows. I could tip my arrows in poison!
There you go. Now you're a Pukwudgie. Continue.
Okay, there's creatures are said to be found in the Bridgewater Triangle, which always makes me think of the Winona Earp series. Anyway, and goes back to Doc Holliday. But the Bridgewater Triangle is formed by Rehoboth?
Rehoboth Beach.
Uh-huh.
Freetown, and Abington.
So we used to go to Rehoboth Beach every summer. When I
Well,
lived in
you were in the
Pennsylvania.
Bridgewater
It's spooky.
Triangle with the Pukwudgies.
Aww.
And the big snakes that we get to. But the lore says they will push people off of Assinet Ledge in Freetown State Forest. Yes! Aw!
I'm so sorry. I just knocked the table
Okay,
With
giant
her
snakes.
boobs.
with my knee. Your leg and it hurt my knee.
Fucking Tiggo bitties, get out of here.
She's going tickle baby.
Yes. Okay, on to the giant snakes! Leave your
snakes.
giant tits out of
I'm
this.
sorry.
Also in the Bridgewater Triangle. People
My
keep-
boobs are not in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Not your tits.
I got a hermit crab there. I wonder if he's a Pukwudgie.
So
I was
Zach,
like 6 though.
Zach had a hermit crab once, and then he went to Costa Rica for the summer, and while I was house sitting, forgot to tell me that I needed to take care of it. And 2 weeks in, he's like, hey, can you go, like, feed and water my hermit crab? And I was like, bitch, it's dead!
Oh no.
I'm gonna have to edit the fuck out of this.
Yeah, you just went a little high.
Wait, we're really hot right now.
Oops.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, giant snakes. So people keep finding giant spanks.
I have giant spanks.
People keep... Not people. People? I have those. My neighbors almost got my Kegel balls. They're old. The neighbors, not the balls. And they know me, so it'd be real awkward if they got my Kegel balls. I actually heard that conversation. Anyway. Yeah. Nope.
Anyway, giant snakes.
Big old snake of snakes.
I like big snakes.
And I cannot lie.
And I kinda don't.
So, yeah, really unfortunate because I have a big butt. Anytime that song came on, dudes would, like, come up behind me and, like, pelvic thrust into my ass. And I'm like, you don't have an anaconda. Get the fuck out of here. These big buns don't want none of your tiny little snake. So.
Your little garden snake is not welcome here.
No. I run over those with a lawnmower. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, no.
That was more for the men, less for the
Talking
snakes.
about the big snakes, Brie.
The big snakes. People keep finding giant snakes that don't belong in that part of the country or that part of the world and should not even be able to survive there.
It's called invasive species. Don't release your pets into the wild.
Yeah, well, they think it's lore, part of the lore, so.
I like that better. But
I know.
Still.
I was like reading this and I was like, technically it's this, but I'm gonna put it in here.
Uh-huh.
So a worker apparently saw a large black snake and, quote, large around as a stovepipe
Huh.
near the swamp in 1939, claiming it raised its...
That's my job.
Killed.
Okay, so they claimed it raised its spade-like head at him before slithering
Slytherin. That's me.
off to the swamp. swamp. Slithering off to the swamp. But here's why I included it in the lore section, because legend says a giant snake appears every 7 years.
Huh.
Aw.
On to the demons!
Woo!
Except they look like aliens.
Yes!
I knew you'd like that even more.
Oh my god, alien demons!
So the Dover demon, it's close
Is it
enough
from
to
Dover
Boston.
Downs?
Yes, it's
Yep,
close
I've
enough
been
to
there too.
Boston. So the lore states that it's like 4 foot tall creature that is bright orange in color, and it was allegedly spotted by 4 different people within a 25-hour time frame in 1977. It's said to have a large watermelon-shaped head. I'm pretty sure I went to school with the Dover demon.
Arnold!
A thin neck and no nose, ears, or mouth to be seen.
Well, how's he
Oh.
eat? He hungry.
Through his butt.
I was about to say through his butt.
Wow,
We're
we're
5.
mature, guys.
We're 5, Carrie. It's fine.
How
Okay.
am I the most mature in this podcast? I don't understand what's
I'm
happening.
the baby here.
That's true, but you're a married woman. Have some class, Carrie.
So I'm not a baby, but I'm also not married. Okay, they're also said to have 2 big glowing, round, glassy eyes that didn't have eyelids. Ugh, dry eyes. Now there, you would need some eye drops for
they
those.
probably have a clear eyelid.
The
Like the
film.
amphibian
Like-
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They look like big orange marbles reflecting in a car's headlights.
Oh,
That's very specific and kind of pretty.
Because one of the guys that saw them,
Mm-hmm.
that's how he was driving, and that's how he saw him. The body was described as, quote, thin with long, spindly arms and legs, and large hands and feet.
So a teenage boy.
So,
yeah.
yeah, pretty much. And the skin was described similarly to shark skin, like rough.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah. So, the only other things I have are the Boston antics. So they would barge into the rich people's homes around Christmas time and just like take over and make them do what they wanted.
No!
And no, but it was like to make
Robin
them
Hood?
understand how the lower classes felt.
You still can't break into people's homes.
They didn't break in, they barged in. Which is where like the Christmas caroling kind of comes from, because they would like force themselves. It's a nicer way, but, like you force your presence on other people and interrupt their plans to pay attention to you.
I mean, as someone who has Christmas caroled and
Oh, same.
knocked on people's houses before,
Same.
Yeah.
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 Granted, I got filmed without my permission, so
God rest you, merry gentlemen. Nothing you can say. Amen.
We have to go Christmas
I
caroling.
love Christmas caroling, but it's too
Christmas
hot here. I can't do it.
I know.
Sweat.
Fucking Texas, man.
Yeah.
Come visit me in Iowa for Christmas. It's real there.
You can make more chowder.
Chowder. All right, and then the
Fresh
last
corn.
thing is this thing called food and folklore. The Boston Eater did an article on it, and wait, I think that's what it's called. Let me go to the fucking link. Boston.eater.com.
Yum, yum, yum.
There's an article, but there was a pop-up series. I don't like this. We'll tell the stories of Boston chefs of color. Anyway, I just don't like how it was phrased.
yeah.
But it started in 2019 and it went through sometime this year, June of this year.
Oh,
But they had like pop-up places, but they're also thinking about opening a restaurant, I think, in 2021.
ooh.
And it has something to do with like food and folklore. So I just thought I'd throw a mention of that in there and have
Fascinating.
people go check it out, because
Yeah.
we love food and folklore,
It's
obviously.
one of my favorite
Yeah.
things.
So I just thought that was really neat and it fit perfectly. But
Yeah.
Well, speaking of food and folklore, let's top off our drinks before we crack into our next segment.
crack. Okay.
Crack. All right, so moving on to the ghosties. We are visiting the USS Salem in Quincy Harbor this week. The Patriot Ledger shout out came in super clutch with some awesome quotes. I honestly thought about covering Salem, but I didn't know if we would do that later. But it's just,
Yes.
it's 30 minutes north of Boston. And so I was like, it's close, but
Mm-hmm.
had a hunch. And then also Fall River popped up in my research, which is where Lizzie Borden. Oh, we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah.
That,
Props.
that could honestly probably be its own episode.
We'll do like Greater Massachusetts one episode.
Yeah.
Yay, because
'Cause-
all of the lore.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Okay, so the USS Salem is a. Sorry, I just lost my place. Let me restart that. The USS Salem is a World War II heavy cruiser that lives in Quincy Harbor and is part of the Boston Museum circuit. Even though it was built as a World War II cruiser, it was never used in war.
Mm-hmm.
However, it was used as a hospital and morgue for disaster victims in the 1950s.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, where it never saw any sort of wartime
It still saw a lot of
battle,
death.
it was also used in the Cold War, but it did see a lot of death through non-wartime
Tragedy.
Yeah. So it is still used in ceremonies,
Okay.
and it was the Navy's flagship for the 6th Fleet. There are 6 confirmed deaths on board
Okay.
for receiving medical care after being injured on an explosion on another ship. So there are at least those 6 people who are known to be dead on board.
Okay.
That came out wrong. They died on board.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yes. It opened as a museum in 1995. And a lot of the ship is still used as a museum, but there are places that they're not touching. So we'll talk about those later.
Okay.
There are some areas that are still intact from when they were in use, like a dentist's office
Ew.
and a full operating theater and staging room.
Yikes.
Yeah, real surgeries.
But interesting to see the history, but
Yeah.
also,
Yeah,
ugh, ew.
but surgeries did happen here.
Sure.
More on that later. In the fall, which we're going in the fall,
Yep.
it is the #1 haunted house attraction in Boston.
Cool.
So we're going. Speaking of, back in 2018, on October 10th, there was a fire that destroyed a lot of their decorations.
Oh,
Yeah. So they had to close down, but no one was hurt.
that's good at least.
Yes. So that's actually really all the history there is, because it wasn't used in wartime.
Sure.
It's just kind of been there. It got moved around a couple times, but nothing major.
Pretty much, yeah.
However, there are ghosts.
Ghosties.
Ghosts!
They set the fire of 2018.
Ghosties started the fire!
Yeah! They were mad that you mock our pain with your Halloween decorations that are trash.
I mean, I'm down for some trash Halloween decorations.
I mean, yes, on both
Spooky.
sides.
yes.
Okay.
So again, Patriot Ledger came in clutch because I got some awesome direct quotes from people. This wasn't from any particular person, but investigators have documented recordings of unknown voices just like interrupting their conversations. So I'm like, okay.
Maybe they should start a podcast.
It's me and Ghost Farm!
They have a TV series. We'll get there. No.
Please!
Oh my god, I've always wanted to make it in television.
Okay, so our first interviewee for the Patriot Ledger is John Connors. He makes an appearance later as well, but he is a retired Marine who's the head archivist for the USS Salem.
What a cool job.
I know, like, badass. But he will hear his name called, turn around, and no one's there.
I know him.
I thought we were interviewing the ghost for a minute.
I
was like, yes! This is good shit!
The ghost has like a
Quality
lapel mic, like
recording.
floating.
Excuse me, I have something to say here. No, but Mr. Connors, direct quote from him, sometimes I'll hear footsteps in other rooms, but I look and no one is there. I've heard it a few times. It doesn't bother me.
Fuck that hard nope.
I would be like, hey.
Oh,
Yeah.
it gets worse.
Oh.
But you get that feeling that there's someone watching you and you get chills up your spine. Oh, okay. You know that weird, if you stare at someone long enough and they're not paying attention to you, that you'll just kind of feel them. First off, I do that with my students all the time. But also,
yeah. That is an A+ teacher move. You're just like, what are they doing? And then everyone else in the class notices, and they're still doing something dumb, and they all turn around, and he's like, it's a good moment. Makes me feel powerful.
Yes. But I don't think that Connors was necessarily doing that. I think he was just doing his job.
Maybe the ghost thought he was doing it
I
correctly.
know. That's incorrect facts.
Judgy little bitch. Just like Netflix.
Are you still watching? Yes, I am. It's quarantine.
Always.
It's quarantine. You should not have a 3-episode
What happened
limit.
to that tweet where you said you're going to take that shit down, Netflix? You lied. You lied to us.
Let me watch an entire season of something without being judged.
Yeah. What else am I gonna do?
Honestly. I
Go
mean,
hot
I have
somewhere.
work now, but...
I mean, technically I am working, but it's like a Zoom meeting and a
Well,
couple of emails.
I was working
Right.
too, but now I have, like, go into the office work, so...
Yeah, but
Oh,
that sucks.
that sucks.
It does.
So another quote from the Patriot Ledger. Shout out, what? Peter Bloomberg is the ship's museum... Wow. Rewind.
It's a shit museum.
Shit museum.
You are not a-
We're not cutting that because it's great. So
I'm sorry, Peter, you are not a shit museum. You are the ship museum's printer.
I like the first one better.
I bet you there is a shit museum somewhere. There's a penis museum.
There is in New York.
Uh-huh.
I almost went.
There's a sex museum.
Yeah.
I want to go.
I've been
there.
to a lot of weird museums. In Philadelphia, there's like a medical horror story one where it's all like medical oddities and like weird fucked up skeletons and stuff. I want to go so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I've never been.
Let's
I
go.
want to go.
Anyway, so from Peter Bloomberg, quote, from Patriot Ledger, not necessarily from him. He was walking down a hallway near the back of the ship when suddenly a large male figure appeared several dozen feet in front of him.
Bigfoot!
He made eye contact with the figure, Bloomberg said, then the figure turned and walked silently down a staircase. We will revisit this quote later.
Stoic.
Do you guys recall when you told me that a ghost couldn't limp because they float through the air? And this motherfucker just walked down some stairs. I don't want to hear shit.
I was speaking from... Okay, still. Limping as a ghost breed, it's just wrong.
He can go downstairs.
You're wrong.
It's
They
just-
can hover
it's-
downstairs.
Right.
It's like the weird elevator trip when you're like, doo, doo, or escalator. What's the one that goes?
Escalator.
Escalator.
The
It's like when
escalator
Austin Powers does it.
Yep. That's the ghost. He's
That
just
was-
doing a bit.
That was the first thing I thought of when I said the ghost going down the stairs.
He's just doing a bit. He's
Yeah.
a big comedy fan.
Okay. So again, Patriot Ledger, great job. I did get other sources in there, but they're all like, there have been people hearing noises, like the crewmen still working, and they see apparitions. I'm like, that's not specific enough for me. Anyway, so,
Who hasn't seen an apparition every once in a while? Am I right?
well, I swear I saw one today, because I think I have a little critter living in my apartment, and he gives
A
me-
ghost critter.
That's when you
Yeah.
call pest control?
No, like
a
a
ghost
ghostie.
critter.
No, I think it's a dog. But he helps me in the kitchen.
Oh.
So, like, when I'm cooking, I'll just, like, see him out of the corner of my eye, and I'm just like, oh, my friend is here.
Okay.
And, like, if I'm reading in the chair, which is right next... We have our living room right next to the kitchen. If I'm reading, I'll see him out of the corner of my eye. I'm just like, oh, hey. He's there. And I think it's my cat every time I turn and she's not there. I'm like, oh. It's obviously my ghost friend. Okay, anyway. So, Don de Cristofaro was a founding member of the Greater Boston Paranormal Associates, which sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Said, quote, "We've had many, many paranormal experiences on the ship. When we give tours, we can't guarantee that something is going to happen, but it's a very, very rare night when nothing happens on the Salem."
Interesting.
They put on a show.
They do. Another quote from the
They said,
article.
take this Halloween decorations, and then they
Lit it on
do,
fire.
I'm gonna put on a show. Light this bitch up.
no, and then they do a comedy routine is where I was going.
Where
They're
they
like,
light the whole place on fire.
you want to see something spooky? Spooky funny. And then they do the whole thing.
Okay.
So,
That's what they do, I bet.
I'm sure.
Another quote from
They
the
have like an
article.
improv troupe.
And it was an accident when they set the place on fire.
Whoops!
Someone didn't yes and.
That was good.
We just
Thank
hardcore
you. Thank you,
people
everybody.
here.
I'm so tired.
I feel that in my soul.
Whew. Okay.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. Another quote. While explaining an intense experience that they had, quote from De Cristofaro. Sorry, I had to go back and look at that. I spelled it. They entered the ship's large ward room. I don't know what I just tried to say there. Let me restart that. They entered the ship's large ward room, and immediately a chair pulled away from the center table. And then a chair at the other end of the table fell over. And they started to hear a loud whirring sound.
Wait,
and it was the drill from the dentist's office next door.
A whirring
I
sound?
know.
A whirring sound.
We pronounce the H here, Catherine.
We are whirring.
We are not whoring. We are whirring.
No, it's hooring. You got it right.
I have to sing it because every time we mention a dentist, some be a dentist. Be a dentist. Okay.
See, I just think of that bit that Kristen Bell does in Burlesque. Talking about a dentist.
Is that Kristen Bell?
Mm-hmm. I know, I had to go back and look. I said, bitch, what? I adore her. I love her so much. It's because she's got darker hair. She's a brunette in that.
I'm impressed.
Fucks you up.
First off, I love burlesque.
Yes.
Show me how to burlesque.
Dr. Long John.
Yes.
Okay.
Give me 10.
Whoa.
Okay, so to get more information about the ghosts, I watched Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters, Season 5, Episode 16, if you would like to watch that as well.
Always.
To get more info... There was a hair in my sock. I just pulled out. That was a weird feeling.
Where I thought it was coming from, so that's good.
Oh, no. So the following information will come from that. So, John Connors, that I mentioned earlier, was also interviewed in Ghost Hunters.
Sean Connor?
John Connors.
I like Sean Connor better.
Sean Connery.
That guy.
007.
Yeah.
Mom, James.
I have a cat.
She's sitting on my... Oh! She's clawing my leg.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is happening?
We're very distracted tonight.
This is why we're not allowed to record in the dark anymore.
Yeah, I can't. I'm so sleepy. We'll just cut all of this. We don't miss what's happening.
Yeah.
So breathe. Go back. There.
Okay, here we go. So, John Connors, that I mentioned earlier, was interviewed again for this. And he mentioned people walking around and going up to the main deck. So, I'm just going to go room by room. So, the Anchor Windlass room.
A tour.
A tour of the USS Salem. Hence your tour guide giving you this wonderful tour. You're welcome.
In the dark.
In the dark. So, okay, anyway, the Anchor Windlass room. An employee named John worked there hours upon hours, ended up dying there, and was not found for...
He worked himself to death.
Yeah.
Wait, he wasn't found for how long?
A couple hours.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
so-
like weeks. I was like, well, that's fucking
Well, I mean-
unfortunate.
She turns 18 tomorrow.
Aww.
Adorable. It's a video. Okay, keep going.
Okay. So yeah, he died in the room where he worked. And this is like recent.
Oh.
So one of the guys that was giving the interview was like, yeah, this was a guy who used to work here.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Because I mean, it was a museum.
Mm-hmm.
So at least 25 years in the past would be the latest. Anyway, so his ghost still lives in that space. But he's a helpful ghost. Some tourists saw him and thought that he was one of their guides and went up and was like, oh, John was so nice. He gave us a tour of this. And the guy's like, we don't have a John that works here. Spooky.
He better be our tour guide.
I know.
There was
Excuse me, John.
nobody there.
It was John.
Oh.
Sweet John.
Okay, so in the sleeping quarters, you can hear footsteps. And while the investigators were down there, they saw a shadow figure at the end of the hall, and they thought they heard a woman's voice.
If we go here, I'm going to be cussing out fucking ghosties in my sleep.
Oh, no.
Well, we don't
It's not
stay there.
their fault.
Oh.
Keep your footsteps quiet, goddammit. I'm trying to sleep.
Okay, wait. If we're going to talk about footsteps, maybe I need to reevaluate the floating situation.
Suck it!
But see, the apparitions themselves are not making the footsteps.
That's true. They're just spooking.
They are spooking.
They spooking.
Okay, so in the medical ward, a woman ghost is seen in one of the wards and will just like pass through walls. Which is weird because, you know, there's a theory that if a ghost dies and then they rebuild something, they'll continue on their old path and continue to pass through the walls. But this wasn't rebuilt.
She's like, I've seen lots of horror movies. I'm gonna fuck with y'all.
She said, I don't have time for this.
I know. So that's
same female. Same.
Yeah, it's weird. Okay, so the operating room / hospital space. This one was kind of trippy because babies were delivered here.
Okay.
Because you can still see the stirrups on the operating table.
Nope.
And so a woman in there will yell either "get out" or "get it out."
I'd be yelling, "Get it out!" Shit.
Well, I mean, if you're
It's
in
like
there and like
a Predator, Alien versus Predator movie.
No, but think about it this way: you're you're trying to push a baby out, and some rando's walking in there being like, "What's going on here?"
I know, but
get the fuck out!
I know, but also like if I'm shitting as I'm pushing a child out of my vagina, I don't think I give a shit at that point. Like, if you want to watch this fucked upness, be my guest. I just want this little fucker out of me.
It's a miracle, Brie.
Yeah. Miracle, your vagina still works afterwards.
Miracle of nature.
And
Anyway.
this miracle
Horrible.
every life is unbelievably. I don't remember the words.
Unlikely.
My mommy says I'm a miracle.
Almost infinitely small.
Infinitely small.
See, that's not what my mommy said.
My mommy says I'm a miracle.
Matilda.
I got her a Mother's Day card once that said, "Thank you for loving me even though I ruined your vagina." She loved it.
So, while
Please do continue.
while the investigators were down there, they heard doors opening and closing, but they couldn't figure out where the sound was coming from because they thought it would come from one side of the room. They'd go try to see what was creaking, and then they'd hear it from the other side of the room.
Okay, so this guy's bit is a ventriloquist act. I
No,
told
I
you
was
there's a
gonna say,
comedy
the
troupe.
funny thing
Yeah.
is, I just see ghosties, like, if you could see them, and
Ghosties.
if their mouths are just open, making these weird-ass noises that don't come from a human mouth. I'm a creaking door!
Oh my god, what icon.
Alright, so the machine shop. This place was creepy feeling because you can just watch it and it just looks like
It just looks creepy. What's called a machine shop.
Yeah.
yeah. So you can look this was from the investigators. They looked down the hall and saw a blur of someone, like a shadow figure,
A blurb?
a blur, just like walking down the hall and walked down into the metal shop.
Walking or floating. We're back to this again.
It's true.
I'm telling you, it's walking.
We'll get really drunk one day and debate this. Okay, continue.
Well, I guess if you can like see part of their legs, and you can see that they're walking.
But they could still be walking on air.
Yeah.
Believe it or not,
its
I'm
legs were
walking on
moving.
air. I can feel so free.
Its legs were moving.
We're definitely gonna get drunk one day and debate this.
Yeah.
Who could it
Okay.
be?
Anyway, so the investigators didn't experience anything really down in the machine the machine shop, but they did feel really uneasy, and they did see the shadow figure walk into it.
It's a machine shop. I always feel uneasy.
You're not gonna feel. Wow, you are not going to feel uneasy in the next one.
Is it a bar?
A bakery.
Oh, you're right. Good job, Carrie.
You are welcome. So, I could not help myself but laughing when they found petrified chocolate cake.
It's
So-
petrified.
It's the ghost of chocolate cake's past.
Oh, Bruce.
It's funny because I actually knew that one. I was thinking of that. She said chocolate cake.
Tumbly tum to use. No excuses. Guys, the more tired I get, the more songs I sing.
Well, and we also directed Matilda together. I
Yeah.
did music and Catherine did the rest of it. And it was the most fun I think I've ever had with a
Yeah.
group of kids because, first off, those kids were amazing. If any of y'all are listening, I love you and I miss you.
Also, don't tell everyone that your teachers do this.
Yes.
There's lots of cussing. But it's not them, it's me. I'm not a teacher. Don't blame them.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I always have the music stuck in my head. Anyway, chocolate cake. Bruce! Petrified chocolate cake! Bruce, please do not eat petrified
No,
chocolate
Brucey,
cake.
no!
You can do it, Brucey! Okay, so people hear sounds that would be typical of a bakery. So people still working there. However, in the investigation, they heard rhythmic knocking from the ceiling. They said, hello, and it stopped. And they asked it to do it again, and it knocked once more.
What?
Oh, but they listened.
I
They're
know.
responsive.
So they, yeah.
Considerate. Better than a lot of apartment neighbors I've had.
Honestly.
You're telling me. I got stories. But yeah, so the ghost like responded to them, which was creepy and cool.
That's polite.
So we're moving now to the barber shop.
Hey, his comedy bit? Knock knock jokes.
Well done.
Man, I can't wait to die and join their troupe. I'm killing it tonight.
God, I hope everyone appreciates us as much as we do.
Man, laying it on thick tonight. Chowder.
Chowder.
Chowder thick.
Side note, I have a cat in my lap and it's making me very happy.
She's so
I
cute.
know.
What a good girl, Mavis.
Okay, so moving to the barber shop. So
Quartet?
I was singing the Dread Barber words.
Sweetie.
Yes.
The only word.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd.
Or we could go Barber of Seville. Figaro, Figaro.
That's the only thing I know from
Yeah.
Barbara Seville offhand, so.
Same. I'm also a couple drinks in, so my brain is not working on full cylinders right now. Okay, so people say they feel dread and uneasiness, and they hear strange noises, which kind of typical. So the investigators almost immediately started hearing footsteps from around the corner. And so they walked out and checked, and nothing was there, but they did keep hearing knocking from that area. But it just
say it.
But it just led them outside of the barber.
I didn't say
It's
it.
that knock knock joke, and it's like, aren't you glad I didn't say banana?
Yeah.
That was this guy's bit.
Yeah. And then at one point, I don't know where it was in the investigation, like what room they were in, but they picked up a voice that they did not hear in real time, but you can hear it, like it said words, but you can't make out what the words are.
It's the worst kind of words to hear.
I know.
You never, so ambiguous.
It's demon talk.
It is. But it was like...
It's football head. Watermelon head. Demon.
Dover
guy.
demon. But he's an alien. I think they lied. They mislabeled him. He's
but it's
so
like,
upset.
if someone mumbled something across
2020,
the room...
we shouldn't
Yeah.
mislabel anymore, guys.
Come on!
Right.
Rename him the Dover Alien.
Okay, so the show's investigators determined that the high electromagnetic fields in the ship could be causing paranoia and hallucinations because they noticed that higher up there were stronger electromagnetic fields rather than lower down. And since that's where your brain is...
They just
Spooky.
fuckity fucked with your head, y'all.
Okay, so one final quote from Mr. John Connor that I couldn't not share. So this is the third time I've mentioned him.
Every time you say his name, I just, yep.
Sean
Sean
Connery.
Connery.
Yes.
No, John Connor.
I don't care. It's so close. I want the other guy.
Aw.
Sorry, this guy's
Do it in a Bond accent and I'll be happy.
One time, somebody asked me. I am not an accent person.
I'm so happy with it. It's okay. Continue.
Are there ghosts here on the weekends?
I'm so happy.
He said, I told them, of course not. They go home on the weekends just like everyone else. And that is the story of the USS Salem.
Brava.
You're welcome.
Yay!
You're welcome. You turned into like an angry Brooklyner there. Some shit. That's great.
I don't do accents, I'm sorry.
It was glorious.
Right. Time to bring it down with the murder of many women.
I'm sorry.
Aw.
Ow.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to break out a lot of fucks again.
Yes, okay.
Because I always get angry.
I actually have two little fun sessions for you today. So I'm doing a really well-known one, and then it's a fun conspiracy theory that actually takes place all over the United States.
Ooh.
But there's like a cluster.
Is it the Zodiac?
No.
Oh.
He was California.
Yeah.
But there's a cluster in Boston.
Ugh.
Probably near a park. So we'll talk about that.
Is this like when they would the serial rapist would
I
attack
said
the
I would
prostitutes?
get there.
Sorry. It's probably not that. I was just asking.
Well, why don't you wait and see?
Because I'm impatient. I'm a petulant child.
So, we are starting out with the Boston Strangler.
Oh, yeah!
So first, I like to do this if I have a lot of information. I'm going to talk a little bit about the victims first.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, I know she's dead, but her name is sweet. Her name is Anna Elsa.
Oh!
Do you want to build a snowman? Okay, so cute.
And
So,
ride our bikes around the hall.
okay,
I like
but
it when she talks to Joan. Sorry.
hang in there, Joan.
I know. I got the whole part down. I can even tick like the clock.
So, our first victim, Anna Elsa, and I think it's Seislers, was I tried. I'm sorry, Anna. Girl, I tried. All of these are going to be bad. So, Anna Elsa was 56.
Oh.
She was sexually assaulted with an unknown object.
Fuckers.
Strangled with the belt of her bathrobe, which, as a robe person, terrifying. Found on June 14th, 1962, in her third-floor apartment.
Wait, how old was she?
56. So we're going to talk about this.
Oh, not what I thought you said. Okay.
Okay, there's two very distinct things, and we'll talk about it later. So she was found in Fenway, Boston.
That's almost the anniversary of when this comes out.
Almost, yeah. So, rest in peace, Anna. Mary Mullen was 85.
Oh.
Okay. She died of a heart attack on June 28th of 1962 in Boston, but in the confession of who is now believed to be the Boston Strangler, he said that she died when he grabbed her from a heart attack.
Oh,
so
no.
she was 85. That's not young, especially in the 60s.
Yeah.
Nina Frances Nichols was 68, sexually assaulted and strangled with her nylon stockings. She was found on June 30th, 1962 in Boston, and the stockings were tied in a bow, and that's kind of a common theme.
Oh, no.
Helen Elizabeth Blake, 65, sexually assaulted, strangled with her nylon stockings, found on June 30th, 1962 in Massachusetts. Ida Irga, 75, sexually assaulted and strangled, found in August of 62 in Beacon Hill, Boston. Jane Buckley Sullivan, 67, sexually assaulted, strangled with her nylon stockings, found August 21st, 1962 in Dorchester, Boston. Sophie Clark, 20, sexually assaulted, strangled with her nylon stocking, found on December 5th in her apartment in Fenway.
That's
Patricia,
a big change.
yeah, we'll talk about it. I have a
Okay.
theory on this,
Okay,
and
cool.
it's literally just my theory, but a lot of other people seem to have it. Patricia Bollock-Bissett, 23, strangled with her stockings, found in December in Fenway. Marianne Brown, 69, raped, strangled, beaten, and stabbed. Found in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is just about 20 minutes outside of Boston, apparently. So it's relevant. Beverly Sammons, 25, stabbed to death at her home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Mary Evelina Corbin, 58, raped and strangled with her stockings, found in September in Salem, Massachusetts. Joanne Marie Graff, 22, strangled with her nylon stockings, found on November 23rd, 63, in Lawrence. Marianne Sullivan, 19, sexually assaulted, strangled with her nylon stockings, found on January 4th, 1964, in her apartment in Boston.
Why does Marianne Sullivan sound so familiar?
Right?
She's super important.
Okay.
She was the last victim of the Boston Strangler. Two other women, Margaret Davis, 60, and Cheryl Laird, 14, and Lawrence were originally attributed to the Boston Strangler, but they were in unrelated cases.
Okay.
So they were also murdered, but it was not a part of the serial attack.
I can't wait for your theory because I now have theories.
Yeah, so, the Boston Strangler is now known to be, Sorry, my cat's literally out of the bag right now.
Out of the box.
Oh.
Out of the box.
So that's 13 women in Boston, Massachusetts and surrounding area in the 1960s. And so the crimes are attributed to Albert DeSalvo based on his confession. So Albert DeSalvo was arrested twice previously for using really complex ruses to sexually assault women. Okay?
Oh.
He never was accused of murdering them so far. So the first thing he did is he was the... what do they call him? He went in and tape measured people. So it was like a tape measure man.
Yeah.
So he would say that he was getting measurements for a modeling agency. So these women would invite him in. He said he would kind of sweet talk them, and then it would be consensual. But a lot of these women did not say it was consensual because he would like be measuring their inseam or their waist, and he'd get very fresh with them.
That's not okay.
He was arrested. After that, they called him the Green Man because he would wear a green work suit and would go to apartment buildings and say that management had set them up there to like check on plumbing. So he had two different ruses. He also was married with a daughter and a son.
Interesting.
So he like had a family, and then this is all happening. They didn't connect him to these cases until he confessed when he was in prison for the Green Man assaults that he was the Boston Strangler. So he came forward and said it was him. There's technically there is DNA evidence, and I'll get to that, but it's only for the last victim. So there's a lot of crazy thing happened. So people were terrified. One of my favorite things in a documentary I watched was that the pound was completely empty of dogs because every woman in Boston adopted all these dogs so that they'd have protection. Because it wasn't like they were on the street. He would break into their apartments when they were alone and kill them. And the bows were really common, and then a couple of them had stabbings, which is different. So ages were 19 to 85, all in the Boston area. All were sexually assaulted. Many were sexually assaulted with like, one woman was found with a broom handle still inside her.
I fucking hate people.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
not okay.
much.
So they were typically blunt objects on top of physical rape from...
So that makes me think impotence would be...
Well, I think it's more hatred of women.
Yeah.
Because there is DNA evidence from semen collected.
Okay.
He's just a fuck.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought Albert had a lot of problems.
Well, yes.
But like, and people knew that like he was convicted of these crimes, and people knew that he had he had committed these crimes. But everyone who knew him, including a psychiatrist, was like, I don't think he's capable of killing people.
I wondered. Okay, continue.
And so he was in a mental institution for criminally insane for a while, where he was undergoing therapy. And he became really good friends with another man. His name was, can you pause it for a second? So he had a roommate, a fellow inmate named George Nasser. So George Nasser went to his attorney, Bailey, and Bailey took over the case of DeSalvo. And basically what DeSalvo said was like, if I publish a book about me committing all these crimes, could I get money for my family? Because he was already serving life in prison for his other crimes. So his whole thing was like, can I get money for my family? And so the attorney is like, bro, this is a huge thing. Okay? So Bailey brought up DeSalvo's confession as his history during their trial. And they tried to get reason of not guilty by insanity for the sexual offenses, but the judge ruled it inadmissible, saying that he knew what was going on, especially if he was writing this book. So he was sentenced to life in prison in 1967 for the rapes and the sexual assault, but he was never actually tried for being the Boston Strangler. So he eventually escaped from the Bridgewater State Hospital with other inmates. There was a huge manhunt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole thing that he got out, and he disguised himself as a Navy officer. But the next day he gave himself up. He went to maximum security at Walworth State Prison, and 6 years later he was found stabbed to death in the prison infirmary. So, what's important to know is that he had asked to be in the infirmary because he wanted to be separate from other people. His old friend George Nasser was no longer in the hospital, but was also in this prison. And it said that he called his psychiatrist and a reporter and said, I need to talk to you guys tomorrow. I need to tell you the real story.
Mm-hmm.
And he was stabbed the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So, there are, has been, as of 2013,
Mm-hmm.
Mary, the last victim, was exhumed.
Mm-hmm.
They found seminal fluid, were able to do a DNA test.
Yep.
They exhumed DeSalvo and got a definitive link. So he was
Wow.
Mary's rapist and killer for sure. My whole thought is I think Nasser was killing the elderly women,
Uh-huh.
and DeSalvo was killing the younger women,
Uh-huh.
and Nasser told him everything so that he can confess realistically.
Mm-hmm.
Because that just... And there was also one black woman, which is also really rare in serial killer cases, that it normally doesn't cross racial
Right.
backgrounds. But DeSalvo has technically been charged after his death, because he was dead when they figured this all out with all of them. But I think Nasser probably had something to do with it, because that's too many coincidences. Like, especially being a prison roommate and then being in prison with them again right away. Like, yeah, it's just it's really interesting. And so I think that DeSalvo took credit for both of them to kind of pad his pockets a little bit, and then he was going to tell that Nasser had also killed these women, because Nasser's like done interviews and things, because it's from the 60s, but that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So did they have prior connection, like proven connections prior to the mental hospital?
No, but none of these women had any connections except
Okay.
for they were
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
One of them even had a roommate, but had like a different entrance, and so a lot of these cases. So I guess the Boston police wanted to make sure that it wasn't separate killings, that a killer took advantage of the fact that everyone was afraid of the stockings and just put stockings.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to ask how they accounted for the similarities.
And unfortunately, we don't have definitive proof on all of these women. We just know that all 13 of these women were killed. But it does seem a little convenient that Nasser was so involved. And so some people have this theory. Some people think it was just him. Some people think that they're all completely separate cases for the most part, and that there was like 5 or 6 killers. I think statistically it's probably the 2 of them. But the MO is really different, because some of them were stabbed and the use of blunt objects and not. And then also, to me, the age difference. Like, one of those is like killing a mother figure, and one of them is killing like an equal age figure or a younger figure. And that, to me, is so different, because like I don't know.
Serial killers can't have that.
Well, the
swing.
only
That's
way
why
I
I
could
don't-
account for that is potentially like a split personality, like multiple personality disorder.
They did talk about that, but that's so rare.
Well, I
Yeah.
know, and that's why
Yeah.
I believe more that it was 2 different people. Those were my 2 theories, that it was like either 2 different people, like you said, or the split personality, but I think it's the 2 different people.
Yeah. So, so in 2013, it was the DNA tests were announced that DeSalvo was the source of the seminal fluid recovered at the scene of Mary Sullivan's 1964 murder. So, a whole lot of drama involved in this.
Yeah.
I meant there's a prison break, there's mental hospitals, there's lawyers getting in on things, there's a prison shanking, like tons of things going on. It's been super, super popular in pop culture, including movies that happened right after. So the Boston Strangler with Tony Curtis as Albert DeSalvo and Henry Fonda
Oh yeah.
came out in 1968. That's
Wow.
a few years after this.
That's in poor taste.
Well,
Yeah.
so the thing is that they were so surprised that he just like came out and was like, "Yeah, I did this."
I just watched Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men.
So good.
So
he
good.
he has a type of movies.
Yeah.
So there's also a Boston like hardcore band named the Boston Strangler. there's a lot of songs. There's a whole podcast from 2016 entitled Stranglers that's about the Boston Strangler. Because they do have DeSalvo's confession tapes, and some people said that he was led on some questions, but to me that would make sense if he's being led and he's admitting to it because he's taking credit for
Someone
the
else's
elderly woman too. But if you live with someone, you may be able to get a lot of information, but just get little things wrong because apparently he had an almost eidetic memory.
Yeah.
And so he was able to really, really tell things, but there was a couple times he'd get confused, and I think it was probably because he had been told about it, and he decided he was going to come clean. So I think he is convicted guilty of many horrible sexual assaults, and it was good he was going to be in prison forever, but I think he was trying to kind of feed off that fame to get more money, basically, for his family.
So
and because he went from no one to someone overnight.
So was Nasser imprisoned for life?
I don't know if he was in prison for life. He was in there for a while, but he did do interviews and things after he was murdered.
Sure shit.
Yeah.
Nasser was in prison for life.
Yeah.
Because
I can see if I can find it. But so that's the story of the Boston Strangler. That's kind of like just the top part, because he underwent a lot of therapy. And women were like on high alert, and people were looking out for women. Like I said, the picture of the empty pound was so interesting. So Nasser was a murderer. He typically shot people, but he let me see. Nasser's appeal was denied in 2008.
Wow.
So he's still in prison and or dead. As of that, from what I can tell. So he's super, in the interview, one of the interviews I watched with him, he's like, well, I like to find people that I can help, other inmates that I think their pursuits are worthy of my time. And I was like, shut up.
pretentious prick.
He bothered me more than DeSalvo. And I know he's creepy, but so was this man, obviously. They were both convicted for horrible, violent crimes, but I don't know. He's just he's shifty. Mm-hmm. And so, that's the Boston Strangler.
I wonder, and I want to say it was the 60s, but I could be wrong. But maybe it wasn't Boston. Maybe it was Brooklyn. I don't know. But there was a serial rapist going around, and they originally targeted prostitutes, but obviously people started being up in arms when they ventured out from just prostitutes.
Yeah, that typically happens, actually.
And
prostitutes are considered much more difficult to track in a lot of ways, and so a lot of, this is disgusting, serial killers practice on prostitutes.
Yeah. Well, and then they hosted a walk the night sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it was the 60s, but I could be wrong. But I also could be wrong. It may not be Boston. It may have been Brooklyn.
Okay.
But
I think it was Brooklyn.
It just reminded me of that, and I'm foggy because it was sophomore year in college that I learned about this shit.
And I'm going to lead us on something a little bit fun. So I just happened to stumble upon this. I did not do extensive research, but it's something that I think I can touch on over the span of many cities because it is all across America. So this is the smiley face murder theory.
Oh.
Yeah. So the smiley face murder theory, or the smiley face gang, is a retired New York City detective, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, and Dr. Lee Gilbertson, who's a criminal justice and gang expert, professor. They think that several young men, white men, normally college age, who were found and classified as accidental drowning, were actually part of a serial killing gang that's operating in cells across the country. So why it's called the smiley face murder, it's because there's been smiley face graffiti found near the places where the bodies went into the water. And so their theory is that basically it's like a gang that has cells, like terrorist organization in different cities, and this could be like a rite of passage or something, but they kill upper class white college boys. And all of these have been either considered suicides or accidental drownings due to blood alcohol content. Both are unfortunately pretty common things that happen to college age people, and especially because that age group for men, I think like accidents and suicide are like two of the top causes of death for that age group for men. So as sad as that is, statistically it's very probable that these were accidents or suicides, but the smiley face is what linked everything together.
And that's clever in a horribly fucked up
Well, the
sort
smiley
of way.
faces are all different. There's not one, like some of them are just the face, some of them have the circle around them, different colors, some of the eyes are like dots, some are X's, they're all different. But they think it was a serial killers, like a whole gang. And so it's been all over America. And there were several in Boston, murders that deaths that they considered part of the smiley face killing. There was an Oxygen television show about it.
I think I saw that.
It was from last year.
Yeah.
And it's examines victims of the smiley face murder theory, but it definitely is a theory. So basically it's men who have disappeared and their bodies were found in a body of water, oftentimes a lot later, and sometimes the decomposition doesn't match.
Right.
So that is a little weird, but a lot of times if someone's contemplating suicide, they sit for a while and try to decide, which is horribly sad. And then the smiley face graffiti is different, but that's what the connection is. So some of them have been ruled undetermined the deaths or accidental drownings, suicides, but this retired New York police detective thinks that they're actually all connected and that this is like a new thing that's about to happen. But the FBI received information and issued a statement saying that it does not think that there is a connection. Which doesn't mean that it's incorrect. They're all respected criminal justice and law enforcement men who are in this, but there is a lot of criticism of it, and there's also like a lot of like Reddit threads that people are super into it. So I think there was 4 men that could fit this in Boston. And I can always check in. But it's been 11 states that they think. And it's been 45 college-age men.
That's so sad.
Yeah. So, it's super sad that 45 young men lost their lives. But it could be, because they think that there's an abduction portion involved in this. And that's why the bodies are found later. With different levels of decomposition. But it's all major colleges near large bodies of water in 11 states.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Any detectives working on cold cases that ever need help typing up old files to get them in the system to help them make connections like this, hit me up, because I will type up your cold case files.
Well, and it's an they're retired, so it's an admirable task that they're taking on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they could certainly be onto something.
I'm so serious. I will help you.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, and I came across it because Boston is Massachusetts is one of the 11 states, and some were founded by Boston College, and there's a lot of water in Boston, so.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me, not like the smiley face bit, but like the all across America. It kind of reminds me of the serial killer Isaiah Keys, which they touch on they do a whole episode on in Crime Junkie. But he would like...
Was he the trucker?
No. But he would travel for business, and he had kits buried all over America, Canada, like all over the place. And so he would just, whenever he'd be in an area and the mood, it'd strike him, he'd go and just kill people.
Yeah. So this, they think it's not like a team of serial killers, but like a network.
Yeah.
Like some like dark web network would be like, oh, I just killed this college kid.
Yeah.
Can you kill a college kid? And like smiley face. So it's really interesting, and I think people are fucked up now that that's something that could totally feasibly happen.
Yeah.
Kind of like a game or a dare or something almost, and it's super gross, but it is very interesting, and it's really recent. like these deaths are occurring now, and so it's something that we may touch on in the future. But I thought it was very interesting, so I wanted to bring it up.
It definitely is, and honestly, it gave me ideas for. Remember that novel I wanted to write called Strings?
Mm-hmm.
It gave me ideas for that because it's like essentially like the board, like the detective board with all the red strings making connections and like the strings of your mind, like the various connections. So that's super interesting, and I look forward to that a lot.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I think that wraps up our tour of Boston. Bree is going to get our social media pulled up.
I got it. All right, guys. So come visit us on our blog which will be up real soon, June 1st, guys. Oh, this will be after June 1st. Anyway.
So we can
I
edit that
will
out.
cut that out. Come visit us at our blog, guys, at darksidetourguide.wordpress.com. Follow us on Instagram at darksidetourguides or email us at darksidetourguides@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed your tour of Boston.
Bye. Chowda.